Hello world, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I'm always trying to come up with new content of a variety of things, and one of the things I came up with was restoring this old guitar here. It was built back in 2010 or 2011 by yours truly. It was a high school woodworking project, and it came as an entire kit, hardware, everything. It was unfinished and rough cut and just needed assembled. That was basically about it. Since it's been sitting in my dad's basement at the farm for, well, since, so it's been 10 years. But what it has is a basswood or basswood, I guess I'm not sure how that's pronounced, body. And then I did put a walnut inlay inside of here. The hardware is old, cruddy, and wasn't very good. I mean, this thing's only been played probably a handful of times because I never really enjoyed it. It's really heavy, just bulky, not very pretty to look at either. Then we had to go ahead and create our own headstocks, and this is what I came up with back then, which I didn't even like very much when I did it. I just wanted it to be completely my own. The neck is rosewood and then a maple back. As far as a lot of guitars go, this is pretty standard. I did have some ideas for this neck, which I will go into later. But for now, what I want to do after years and years of sitting in a basement and getting to look like this, I want to plug it in, tune it up, which I have these nice rusty strings, and I'm even missing one here, my B string. So I'm going to try tuning it out and see how it sounds. I don't even remember how it sounds. So I'm going to be playing through a Marshall DSL 40C. It is a tube amp, and I need to replace my tubes, but it still sounds pretty decent. There's just some, it's got some noise. And then since this is a sound related test, I will run it through an actual recording, audio recording, which I have set over here, which is why I'm pointing over here. The reason being, I want the amp cranked to get that tube tone. I just want as much tone as I can possibly get. So here we go. Let's see, hope these strings don't break on me. And, I don't even know, I'm not a Telecaster guy. I've never played an actual one, I don't think. So I don't know what's tone and volume. I'll start on the neck pickup, run through them. Everything on it was actually tuned high. I thought it would be low. First things first, I'm going to have to get new tuning pegs. These are not working very well. Now that it's in tune-ish, I'm just going to leave it set up exactly how it was, and see how it sounds. I'm just playing an E chord since it's one chord I can play without the B string. Here it's cut. So this is what I'm going to compare it to. It's an old silver tone. This is my first guitar I've ever had. It is as cheap, if not cheaper, than that guitar. But that's why I chose this one, plus it's a Strat, that's a Telecaster, both based off of models of Fender guitars. So, I'm going to put this on the neck pickup and make sure it's in tune and see how she goes. we have a decent comparison between 3 guitars. So what we're going to do next is head down to the wood shop and start tearing it apart. Alright, we're down in my wood shop now, and I got to editing some video to just keep up with where I'm at. And so I got to hear what this sounded like compared to the rest side by side that you guys just watched. And I gotta say, I was pretty impressed. I did a little messing around with it off video, and where it lacked was the highs, but put a little drive on it and play the top strings. It wasn't bad. I actually liked it more than I did the Stratocaster. It doesn't matter, I'm changing it anyways. It did sound like crap on the clean channel, like uber crap on the clean channel. If you hear that noise, I'm not sure how loud it is on camera, so I got a shotgun mic, but it's my air purifier. It's kind of annoying, but you get used to it. One really bad thing about this guitar is the action. You can see how high, I guess for the non-guitar players, the action is how high the string is from the fretboard. And this, for an electric guitar, is extremely high. At first glance looking at this, I thought, wow, for a high school kid who hated school, I didn't do too bad of a job. But then I start seeing some craftsmanship fails, and also I just cut corners. Well, the action is by far the worst. Thing about this guitar, playability wise. Right here, this is the bridge. I have them all the way up. I'm assuming because there is fret buzz. If you look here, there's a gap. It's very mild, but it is there. So if I were to play it, and then if I crank back on the neck, you can hear the strings tighten. I feel like I do remember one of these stripped out and wouldn't like grab, which is probably due to cheap screws, because this is maple, like I said, so it should grab it. It's a hardwood. And then the other thing I got to looking at is this part right here is called the nut, and it is extremely high, and it's not flush with the neck at all. It's a piece of crap. It's loose, I can move it. All those things are bad. So I'll be replacing that nut with bone, actually. One good thing is I never took the plastic off this, so the pick guard should be in decent shape. Could use some new screws, but I'm gonna start tearing this thing apart now. The first step I gotta do is I gotta yank the strings. So I'm just gonna cut them back here. Pull these out the back. Which brings me to another point, is there are holes in the back where I have it strung for a top load, but there are holes drilled on the bottom of this, and you can run the strings actually through the back of the body, and then there would be like little holes which you would insert like metal decorative caps. Well, they actually serve a purpose. They would catch the ball on the end of the string and allow you to run it up through there. Probably allows for better tuning stability, I don't know, but I know most traditional Telecasters do have that, so I will be drilling holes in the body of this eventually. So I'm gonna go that route. I kinda wanna just take this really crappy guitar and try and make it as Fender Telecaster as I can, but with my own select, setups and designs, what have you. Should also say this is not a guitar how-to. This is just me vlogging my way through the journey. One of the main things is this guitar neck. I thought about just swapping it for an actual name brand because there's so many things that go into the neck, such as like truss rods the nuts and the fret leveling and the type of woods and just the like curvature of, there's more than I care to know about guitar necks. When I got to looking, I hopped on eBay and I found that a lot of necks are rosewood fretboards and maple back necks. So this has that. Other than the wood, the only difference would be the hardware. I think that I can refinish this one to be a perfectly playable neck. So that's what I'm gonna try. If down the road I feel I need a new neck, I can just swap it out, but I would like to keep it just like it is. Plus it saves me about $200. So that's kind of where I settled with that. So these tuners, especially this one, you can just tell there's like a dead spot in it. It's not very good. Alright, take the neck off. Is in there good? Neck plate. Like a pretty heavy duty neck plate actually. And she's off. Tape all over this. Masking tape. There's a reason for that. Just the pickup. I wonder how I knew what went where, because there's a wire just dangling here. What the heck is that for? Alright. Smashed wire in there. So they actually call this an ashtray style bridge. As you can see why. It's kind of funny though. Alright. Two pickups. And some hardware. Last but not least, the input jack. This is very poorly put in there. I'll either need a new one of these or something. I don't know why I did such a bad job. Maybe I just didn't care back then. I don't know. Probably just go ahead and get a new one of these. I don't really see why it didn't fit, but... Alright, now this thing's free. It's got a lot of plastic parts, but I don't really see why it wasn't working. That one's pretty corroded there. Hopefully there's new schematics when I get a new one of these. Now I got all the hardware off. Weird how fast a guitar comes apart. Next step is get all this masking tape off. I wonder if that'll sand off. I, for the most part, have this tape off. There's some really thin spots that I just couldn't get. So I'm gonna sand it off. So I'm gonna go over it with some 80 grit. That's what I'm gonna start with, and try and strip it down. And then I'll move to probably 180, and then I'll probably finish. I'll see what I got, but I'll probably finish at like 240, something like that. Now that I got this guitar body sanded up pretty good, I do have to go, I'm going to do the edges by hand so I don't take too much material off, and then I'll have to get these little crannies in between there by hand, and then I'm going to do some sanding inside of here, which I never did for some reason, and I kind of put a little dip there with the orbital sander trying to get this even here. And so now I got a little dip in the neck, so I'll try and fix that up as best I can. So you can actually see a router bit mark inside of there. And I don't know if this is from me, or I guess it wouldn't probably have been me. It would have been the teacher more than likely. Blame him. But what I'm actually going to do now is do some test strips on the back, because I still have to go over this with a few more different grits of sandpaper. But since it's raw, at least now, I want to do some test strips and see what it's kind of going to look like, to see what I want to do for a finish on it. So I'm just going to do like some little dicky spots and then sand them out later. So here's one thing I want to try out. It's Krylon whitewash. I've actually made my own whitewash before, but I've never bought it. But what I've done in the past is actually just use this Ultra Cover, you know, it's kind of the classic do everything paint everyone uses. And then I just mix it with water. I think I did like a 50-50 depending on how dark I wanted the wash to be. But I believe it was 50-50, 50% water, 50% paint. So I'm actually just going to use a rag. This is going to act like stain and not paint. You will put it on, kind of let it soak, and then wipe it off. Pretty deep. Yeah, I was afraid of that. So it didn't really amount to crap. I had one more idea I wanted to try. This wood has, well, for one, it's ugly because it's several pieces of wood. It's not a solid piece, but the wood grain is so tight and light. I think it was meant to just be painted. I want to try and bring out the wood grain because I want a wood look. In my experience, burning brings out a different perspective of the wood grain. The grain is lighter than the rest of the wood, where when you stain, the grain is darker than the rest of the wood. Both achieve a grain look, just two different, I guess, styles you could call it. I've also found when you add stain over burnt wood, it sometimes achieves a really cool effect. I don't know about that. This is exactly how I didn't like the stuff I made with the water mix. Is it leaves like a blotchy, chalky finish. Yeah, I don't really like that. The burnt's kind of cool. I've never seen a burnt guitar before. Just not sure what to do. So I kind of wanted to do a whitewash and then have it burst into black. Another option is I could just do a nice walnut finish and then paint white along the crappier wood. I don't know. I got some thinking to do now. So I'm working on inside this neck cavity. I have a gross term to put it. You can tell that there is a gap in the back. This whole neck I'm going to do by hand, but I want to get this sanded down so that way there's no inconsistencies. Just the ever so slightest gap in the front. Let's see, I don't know if you can tell, but I can wiggle it if I push down here. So I'm going to keep working on this. Try and get that flush. This bottom side is almost perfectly level now. Right there. Looks like there's a bit needs to come off the front. That's damn near perfect. No more wiggle. Another thing I found is there's kind of it sort of angles down, kind of a rounded edge. It's not perfectly, you know, square. And that might be part of the reason why I'm seeing a gap. I think if I just get this perfectly level in here, that's going to be solely cosmetic. Alright, so I took it and put some wood filler along the walnut. There's already some in there. Some of it kind of crackled away since there wasn't really a nice finish on this. layer it up a little bit more back here. Just smash it in there. And then it'll be perfect time for this to dry. And when I go over it with my next grit, it'll sand down perfect. I got my neck mated up as good as I'm gonna get it. And I got it nice and sharp through here. It looks real nice. I think this is pretty much golden. There is a tiny little dip. I might throw just a smidge of wood filler in. It's cosmetic, and it's hardly noticeable, but I notice it. Probably the best thing I could do, just smash it in there with this. Form it. There you go. I'll just have to lightly hit it with some sandpaper. So I do have to change the headstock, and I drew up some headstock ideas. I even dabbled with changing the body style, but decided against it, so that way I can, you know, buy well-fitting parts for just Telecasters. I did all of these without looking at any, because I didn't want to copy, you know, anything. And then that one actually ended up looking like a real Telecaster one. You can see all of these first half have edges, and the Telecaster is all curves and no edges. And so I decided to go with this one. So it's gonna have a smooth top, a smooth nose, and I'll smooth out that bottom. The reason I came up with all of these with these dips in them, I wanted to keep my brand, I guess you could call it, that I put in there, to keep it somewhat original. So I'm just gonna round off this edge. I'm gonna go as far as I can over here, and then I'm gonna round off this edge a little bit. I'm gonna try and stay away as much as I can from that peg, so that way it's solid still. So what I did is use this old grandfather clock weight, and it always works out for some reason. It's like a perfect size. But what I did is I took it, just kind of put it on the edges, and then traced around it. And then same thing here, I took it, traced around it, you get the point. It looks kind of how it drew, so if it's not perfect, I can go in with sandpaper and kind of get it where I feel like it should be. Alright, I'll start off with an easy one to get the hang of things. Just moving around. That should be better. Woo. So, I'll have to sandpaper that, but it's my first edge. Okay, so here's my rough cut headstock. Not too shabby. I could exaggerate this a little bit if I wanted to. Take a look at my drawing, but it's not as pizzazzy as I thought. So this is a little more exaggerated. It's this one right here at the top. So that little hump, it's definitely a lot skinnier. So I could try and exaggerate it a little more. This brand kind of throws a wrench into things. I might even take a little more off of here. I'm definitely going to try and fancy it up a little bit more than I have it. Alright, I got a design drawn out that I like. It's alright. I'm going to go a lot smaller with it. So you can see I'm going to go here, and then it's going to have a straight edge. I was going to go all curves, but it was frustrating. Probably drew out 50 different designs trying to get something I could use. I'll be happy with this. It'll look nice and sleek. There is one thing. So if I take one of these tuning pegs, and the only one that's going to be an issue is the end one, and if you look, it comes all the way to the end. So that's how it's going to kind of look. So usually they would stick out, or the headstock would stick out a little bit further. One option I do have, I can angle it a little bit more. Effectively, it will still work. It's just going to be a really short headstock and skinny. And they say that a bigger headstock will give you more tone, but there's nothing I can do about this. So the problem is that my old cut was right there. You can see. So I just cut it too short back in the day, which, I mean, we didn't know. I think we just hand drew our headstocks out. And I keep saying we because it was me and a friend that bought these kits. And yeah, I think we just drew our headstocks out. I think he had like a Fender. He drew like an actual Fender, copied Fender. And then I just went crazy with mine. So here's what I came up with. Thought about rounding this off or keeping it with that little corner. I think I might just keep it how it is. I have her all sanded down. The back, I just gave it a scuff through the clear coat. It's really easy to take off because there's hardly anything on there. But you can see my headstock now. It's finished up. Want to see it on the guitar. Looks like more of a traditional Telecaster head. I like it. I like how it turned out. Not too shabby. Okay, I have these all sanded down to 240 is what I ended on. I believe the reason I can't go any higher than 240 is because it does have to be scuffed a bit for the paint to properly adhere to the raw wood. I'm not a painter, nor do I claim to be. So the rest of this, I have to look up a proper process of how to paint this. I've heard some things where people will just put a clear over this. Once they clear it, they scuff it and paint over top. I suppose now is the time if I want to use a stain to bring the grain out of these. I don't know how I would stain and not get any stain on this walnut piece. Either that or I could just stain the walnut, but I've never seen that done before. Kind of nervous to what to do next. I'm thinking I'm going to do stain because I really want to bring out that wood grain. For the wood grain to show through paint, I have to go pretty dark. Alright, here's what I've come up with so far. I know these two stains are going to show the grain through paint the most. They're extremely dark. I mean, this one's ebony, so it's essentially just actually black. This one is extremely dark brown. Like, I don't think you can get much darker than this for a brown. So, you can see ebony is just black. Just wipe it off. With a white and black color scheme, it wouldn't be bad. The grain will definitely show through with that. So this is going to be more of your traditional brown, but it's going to be dark. It too is almost black. Ooh, that looks really pretty. Here's my results. Here's the Jacobean. Here's the ebony. And the Jacobean, even though it's brown, when it soaks into the grain, it turns it just pitch black, and it really has some contrast between the grain and then the actual wood. Where the ebony doesn't do that great a job. It actually just kind of colors the wood. It almost looks like where I burnt right here. So I think I'm gonna go with Jacobean, and also it'll kind of match this walnut. So if I do get any onto it, maybe it won't be catastrophic. I guess only time will tell. Oh, that looks so much better. Bringing out imperfections that you can't even see. Super happy with this color though. Holy crap, it's freaking cool. Man, that looks good. There's a little blotch here. It's where it soaked up that whitewash. I wish I didn't do such a big area. Sometimes I make stupid mistakes. Maybe I'll go over that whitewash too. So I'm just gonna let this sit for a little bit. That is such a cool freaking stain though. God, that looks awesome. Alright. I've found that yes, you can add more stain. It doesn't really do much. Once you get your first coat on, everything after that, you're really not going to achieve much better, unfortunately. So you can still see here's the whitewash, even though it was sanded over with 80 grit, 180, 240, to the point where you couldn't even see it on the raw wood, but it's still in there. My only option would be to try and sand it down further. Right here, where it's really dark, as you can see what was kind of left where I burnt. Kind of cool. I was going to paint this all white because I hated the wood. Now, seeing it looks great. What I might do is do my burst and then leave the back natural wood and then go front white. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to sand the back down and try and get that better. Just finished sanding with my 80 grit. Got it back to looking kind of how it was. Right here is where the whitewash was. And you just can't see it. But I'm gonna go with through my steps of sanding now, and then I'm gonna burn it. So even though it may sound silly, I am going to wait to light my torch because of all the sawdust in the air. If you're not aware, maybe you've never heard this, but sawdust is extremely explosive. I should say flammable, but it explodes. I'm gonna let my air filtration clear it out a little bit. And then we will do a little burning. Got myself a beer. Whatever you're doing right now, put down your phone, go to the fridge, and have a beer. I suggest you do the same as me, and we have a beer together. Alright, we're gonna light this torch up. So that's sort of a burst. Take my 240 grit, clean it up a little bit. So if you like this, you could actually stop there and I'll wait for this thing. I'll drink my beer. It does look, unique, cool. You could call it just good there. I wonder what burnt walnut would look like. I bet no one's done that in the history of ever. What you would do is just go over this with your clear coat. It would kind of clean up a little bit and look really nice. But I am going to use my stain. For me, burning it is going to even up my wood, and also it's going to help bring out the wood grain even more. But as you can see there, kind of the goal, what it does. Let's see how that whitewash turns. I don't know if you can notice how fast it soaks in. I think when you heat it up, the pores open up and just really soaks in there. But you can see how my burst, when I went around, you know, it's extremely dark. But you can see where I lightly went over, it didn't absorb as much, and it looks like this. So you can see my really darks, and then it gets lighter towards the middle. That's what I was going for. I think that might just be a low spot. It looks weird in the light. Yup. This is gorgeous. I'm gonna like that. No swirlies. Looks absolutely stunning. Man, I love that. Alright, I'm gonna just burn these sides up. So here's the finished side, and basically all it is just a brown tint to this. It's called a grade tint, which this is pretty neat even on its own. Like I said, you could even just leave the burned how it is. I think I will go ahead and tape this off because that's too dark. There we go. That should be good for the stain. Wipe it. I was wearing gloves, and you might think it was because I wanted to keep stain off of my hands. Well, it wasn't. The main reason that you wear gloves is because if you touch anywhere on here, the oils from your hand can leave a smudge or a fingerprint, and once you apply your finish, it won't absorb for some reason, and you will literally have a perfect fingerprint. It looks great how it is, actually, but I'm going to stick to my original plan. Hopefully this wood grain shows through the white really well. I just have to let this dry now, and then once I get my clear coat, I will go over it with that, and then we'll start painting.